5 minutes after 9 o'clock. Thank you for tuning in. I have a distant memory I want to share with you. When I was a little kid, this must have been kindergarten or first grade. We had a substitute teacher who came in, and the kids were just unruly. They were just not behaving well. And I walked up to the teacher who wasn't familiar with us. At least I felt like she wasn't. And I said to her, "You don't have to take this from them." And she kind of smiled as if I was being cute, and of course I didn't think of that at the time. I just was telling her what I thought. You don't have to take this from them, and went back to my seat. And as a kid, I kind of did that a lot when I would see an underdog kid, one of the kids getting bullied by somebody else. Mm-hmm. I'd usually be the guy who walked over there and just, I can be your friend, just, I can eat lunch with you, or I can, hang out with you, whatever, Bullying is an interesting thing. It's something that I'm glad is in the forefront now of a lot of discussions, because now it can be so much worse, because when we were kids, it was always in person. Now it can be online. It can be anonymous.
Yeah.
You can get other kids to gang up on you.
Yeah.
And it's not just kids. I mean, adults are being bullied all the time, too.
Yeah.
Our next guest, from what I read, would be one of those guys who I would have gone up to and said, "Hey, I'll have lunch with you. Come on, let's go somewhere and do something," right? And the bullies really never messed with me, I guess because I was big, but I was always timid, but firm. I guess that's the best way to explain my persona. Andrew Faas has written a book. It's called The Bully's Trap: Bullying in the Workplace. How scary is that adults are still bullying people? A Harvard study, according to my notes that were provided to me, called The Relationship Between Workplace Stresses and Mortality and Health Costs, found that more than 120,000 deaths annually may be attributable to workplace stress. Gosh. And 5 to 8% of annual healthcare costs are associated with and may be attributed to how U.S. companies manage their workforce. Let's find out about this. Andrew Faas is the head of the Faas Foundation. He focuses on healthcare, education, and medical research. And, of course, he's an advocate for preventing bullying. Let's talk to him. Good morning, Andrew. How are you?
Good morning, Larry. How are you?
Pretty good. Where are you calling from?
I'm calling from Caledon, Ontario, which is an hour north of Toronto.
All right. I love that part of the world. Hey, what's the temperature like right now? Is it getting cold?
Well, I've got the fireplace on, and it's 9 Celsius, so
wow.
That it'll warm up to around 20 today.
I don't even know what that. I never know how to translate that. What does that mean?
That'd be around 70.
Oh, okay. So just knowing that you have a fireplace. So do you? I mean, is it mutual admiration? Like, do you wish you were here in Florida? Because I wish I was there. That just sounds like so nice.
I actually am there. I spend the winters in Palm Beach.
Oh, you're a snowbird.
I'm a snowbird.
Were you bullied when you were a kid?
Not when I was a kid, but I was bullied or retaliated against late in my career for being a whistleblower.
Oh my goodness!
Blew the whistle on a corrupt executive.
So there were two stories in the news this morning. One about the salmonella in the peanut butter. Mm-hmm. Somebody blew a whistle on that guy, which was a good thing.
Yes,
and this other this Volkswagen story, but they were lying about their emissions. Mm-hmm. And now they're in trouble, and somebody blew the whistle on them too. I don't know who, but so that's what you did. You blew the whistle.
I blew the whistle, and for over 18 months, I was retaliated against, the bully attempted to totally discredit me, and it was a horrible experience, which I was able to resolve to my satisfaction. Because I had the facts, and it eventually came out. But it left a major scar, and I had a very difficult time finding closure on it, which, by the way, is what most who are severely bullied go through. And I felt that if I'm going through this, how many others are? And for me, it was writing the book was very therapeutic in terms bringing some closure to it and turning negative energy into positive energy.
Were you tempted to abandon ship just to get away from it? Were you tempted to leave your career, or at least leave the location where you worked?
No, because I was actually an advisor to the board, and so my contract there ended, and I went on to other things.
Was there any physical altercation between you and the other person?
No.
No.
But I did receive an anonymous death threat.
Oh, well, that qualifies.
Oh, yeah.
That I guess that qualifies.
Yeah.
But as you mentioned earlier, there's quite a bit written on bullying in schools,
right,
and relatively written on bullying in the workplace. And while there are similarities, there are some fundamental differences. And the most being the ways and means of bullying are far more subtle and far more complex.
Well, let me ask you if there were any similarities. I want to hear the differences, but were there any similarities between childhood bullying? Like, were they calling you names or posting things about you that weren't true on social websites, that kind of thing?
No, actually, I didn't get any of that. It was basically the gossiping and basically discrediting me in terms of my credibility on what I raised.
And
Okay.
that's just it, because usually the person that's the bully, they have this entourage of people that are going to support them, whether it's properly to support them or not. And then you feel the aftermath of that.
That's correct, and that's what usually happens. It's also why I called the book "The Bully's Trap," because in most situations the bully attempts to have the target become what they want them to become. So you take a very solid, hardworking employee with a good attitude, and once they're targeted, it's a very it's an approach and the ways and means to get that person to become a poor performer with a bad attitude.
So
and
how
once
did
that happens? The target or the victim becomes the villain.
So I don't know if you want to tell exactly the specifics about what you blew the whistle on, what happened there. But and if you don't, that's okay too. But just without knowing what exactly you said or what was said, it sounds like the bullying was directly associated with whatever you were claiming.
Yes, and again, I can't get into any detail on it because I did sign a confidentiality agreement on that.
Okay, all right.
But in my book, I do talk about whistleblowing and how to safely convey wrongdoing in an organization. And I also asserted that had bystanders, people who were in the know, come forward earlier, the financial meltdown that we had could have been avoided because people were in the know and they did not come forward.
Oh, my
and
goodness.
they did not come forward because they were afraid. It's
Andrew, we have to take a little break. I want to hear more. I want to hear how you got through it and how people can benefit from what you are sharing in your book. The book is called The Bully's Trap. We'll be right back with Andrew after this.
The weather is brought to you by myfwc.com. Safe boating is no accident. For today, sunshine mixing with clouds, high 87 to 91. Partly cloudy tonight, low 68 to 72. Tomorrow, sunshine and building clouds. There can be an afternoon thunderstorm in spots, but mainly dry at the coast, the high 86 to 90. For Wednesday, times of sun and clouds with a shower or thunderstorm near the coast, the high 84 to 88. From the Florida Weather Center, I'm meteorologist Joe Lundberg.
If you're anything like I was, the thought of getting older was the last thing on your mind. But here we are. For me, it started slowly. The lack of energy, never being in the mood. And when I was, I could never perform at my best. I tried the pills and other treatments with minimal results, and all but given up on my sex life. Then I found the doctors at New Male Medical Center. Wow, they made a new male out of me. Feel like I'm 25 again. I have renewed vigor, so much more energy, and no longer worry about my performance. New Male treated me like my situation was one of a kind, with a custom treatment plan that really works. I feel great. They can create one for you too. It does not matter if you suffer from low testosterone, erectile dysfunction, or just want to last longer. New Male will help you.
Call New Male Medical Center today at 352-404-4779. 352-404-4779. That's 352-404-4779. It will change your life. 352-404-4779.
Good credits, bad credits. It's none of our business because we're not an auto dealer. We're not a bank. We're not your mother. We're OcalaForSale.com. Marion County's marketplace for cars, trucks, and SUVs. We've got thousands of sellers standing by to take your call. No middleman. But hurry, don't walk, don't run. Just sit down and log on to OcalaForSale.com. Prices and inventory change daily. Offer does not include dealer upcharge. Undercutting, rust-proofing, factory surcharge, or delivery fee. See website for details.
Do you have areas that have started sagging or drooping? Is what you're looking at not quite the same as it was years ago? Are there enhancements you've been putting off? Is there serious damage you need fixed? Then call on us, Damage Control Services, when your roof is sagging and the drywall is drooping after a storm, or your home just needs some enhancements. From damage repairs to new construction, Damage Control Services is here to help.
17 minutes after 9 o'clock. Thank you for tuning in. Andrew Faas is on the phone up in Canada, in Ontario, right? Not too far from Toronto, he said?
Yep.
And he had the fireplace on this morning, but it's going to be, 7 degrees Celsius?
Yeah.
Celsius. 70 degrees. I don't
70
know.
degrees
One of
Fahrenheit.
these days I'll have to have a way
20
to
degrees Celsius.
Okay. One of these days I'm going to learn how to do this. Just figure it out.
Ooh, you're going to get emails now with the formula.
What? Oh, there's a
From
formula.
people, yeah,
I know.
people will be
Sent
sending
this
you stuff.
topic a few years ago to go on the metric system.
I know, but America doesn't want to be bullied. We say, no, we're staying with what we're doing.
That's right.
In the book, Andrew, The Bully's Trap, you have other people's stories. The one I wanted to ask you about was Sonia. She was the only lady in a bunch of firefighters. Is that right?
That's correct, yes.
And I would think that a lady in that particular situation would have more than just bullying to worry about. I'm guessing there was probably, I don't know, sexual innuendos that makes women uncomfortable, that kind of stuff. But I guess that's considered bullying as well. Bullying.
Oh, absolutely. Unwanted advances and that persist and impact on ability to do the job, and her superior waged a all-out effort to again discredit her and indicate that she was not physically or mentally equipped to handle the challenges of being a firefighter. And it's an interesting story because she did go to Human Resources, and Human Resources did, in my view, all of the right things, except the investigation lasted over a year. And what she went through over that year's period just made a bad situation much, much worse.
Wow. Her superior was like twice her age, right?
Yes, roughly, yeah.
If I remember right, yeah.
Yes.
So the one thing I wanted to ask you about, because if the bullying is coming from your boss, your superior, that's worse than if it's coming from somebody higher than you but lower than that person. Because at least if that person, if the boss is at least on your side, at least you can have some comfort in knowing that something's going to be done. But if it's the boss, what are you going to do?
Well, and and 70% of the time it is boss to subordinate. And my advice to people when that occurs is as soon as they discover that there's something wrong, because with bullying in the workplace, as I indicated before, it's very subtle, it's very complex, and a lot of people who are targeted don't realize that they're targeted until it's too late. So my advice to people is to, if they see something that is out of whack, make sure that they are tuned into other things. Keep a running record of what is going on. And when you combine events, situations, supposedly comments, events, and situations, you add them together, it usually adds up to something. The other advice I give people is when they discover that something's amiss, don't deal with it alone. Seek the advice and talk to somebody that they can trust and that they're close to, so that they can help and deal with it better than an emotional reaction, which occurs in most situations.
Your foundation has a work health survey, and you even point things out in that survey that bullying can come about as for employees in the workplace who are forced to donate to local charitable organizations through payroll deduction, that they're forced to take different kinds of insurances and things like that.
Yes, and actually the survey is being conducted by the Mental Health America. We've formed a collaborative effort with the Center for Addiction and Mental Health in Canada and Mental Health America, and the first step that we're taking is understanding the stress, unnecessary stress that exists in the workplace. And although the book is about bullying, the initiative is to help organizations create psychologically healthy and safe workplaces.
I want to ask you about two types of bullying, I'm trying to remember if I ever had this experience. But if you're new to a job, and for some reason, as the new guy, you're being picked on a lot, you can often break that barrier simply by shrugging it off, yucking it up with the bullies, and then making them say, "Oh, okay, he's an okay guy. We can let off on him now," and then you can have a happier existence at that job. I mean, a lot of people have probably experienced that, the newbie, not only in workplace but in schools. Mm-hmm. But it sounds like in what you went through and what the lady in the fire department went through, story, it's almost unfixable. It is. I mean, the relationship between yourself and the person who's bullying you, or any of them, is it reversible? Is it fixable? Can all's well be that ends well happen?
I believe it can, in many cases, if it's just an individual bully, let's say it's like Sonia's case, somebody making unwanted advances. The first step is really to say, I appreciate you're taking an interest in me, but I'm not interested, and I would appreciate you not making comments of that nature. Usually it stops there, but when it doesn't stop there, then obviously it becomes more complicated, and it needs to be taken to another level as quickly as possible. In my book, I don't spend a lot of time on reforming the bullies, and that's not to say that it's not possible, but it's the efficacy of that I question. And you have to go back to the fundamental question is why do bullies bully? And the answer to that is they bully because they can. They work in an environment where it's allowed, condoned, and in many cases expected as a method to motivate people. So the answer to that is to turn a toxic culture into a psychologically healthy culture. And the most recent example where we've seen one of the most recent example is Amazon and the expose
Right.
did on it. And if 25% of that is true, they have a serious problem.
Yeah, right.
That is not sustainable.
Right.
Yesterday, somebody was quoted in an article, and I thought she put it so well by saying that in today's work environment, it's modeled after Mad Men for a Leave It to Beaver family.
I gotcha. Right.
And Oscar Wilde said that, it's not the prisoners who need the reformation; it's the prisons.
Well, and you know what I was thinking too. If a good worker decides to leave the company because he or she is being bullied, then the bully stays, and the good worker is gone, and the business suffers. Mm-hmm. So somewhere along the way, there's got to be a formula to indicate, and you actually have it in your book, that your business, if you're the CEO, you're the board, your business suffers by keeping a bully on and allowing that behavior to continue, because the good workers are going to leave.
Absolutely. Unfortunately, the bully in many instances are considered the heroes and the top performers because they're the loudest. And we see that happening.
So, what do you think?
In the Republican Party.
As a snowbird American and as a Canadian, what do you think of Donald Trump? Is he a bully?
Absolutely.
Yeah.
Narcissistic bully. I don't normally comment on U.S. politics, but I can't help that one.
Well, it's an easy one. Andrew, thank you for being on the air with us today. I really love this topic. Not that I love bullying, but I love the fact that this is a way to slap back at the ones who don't mind slapping. Andrew spells his last name, by the way, Faas, if you're looking him up, Andrew Faas. The book is called The Bully's Trap. And before we run out of time, let me do two things. Give this one away. So if you'd like the copy that was sent to us, just call me and it'll be yours. The rest of us have to go buy it. So Andrew, give us the directions on how to do that. Is there a website or
actually www.andrewfoss.com.
Okay, just your name?
Yes, and it's also available at Amazon and Barnes and Noble.
Okay, and is there a website called thebullystrap.com?
There is, but the blog that I do is under www.andrewfoss.com.
Okay, gotcha. And remember, Andrew's last name is Faas, F as in Frank, A as in Apple, S as in Sam. Frank, Apple, Sam. Andrew, thank you for being on the air with us today. Don't get too cold. And where do you visit? What part of Florida do you visit?
Well, we have a home right in Palm Beach.
In Palm Beach? Mm-hmm. Okay.
Nice.
If you're ever in this area, we're a little bit north of that, but if you're ever in this area, we'd love to have you in the studio.
Well, I'll take you up on that offer, and I do appreciate the ability to tell the story and have the discussion and the debate on
bullying.
What's the topic.
All right, thank you so much, Andrew. We'll be right back.
Fox News Radio, I'm Pam Puso. He's still the Republican frontrunner, Donald Trump, who tells Fox he doesn't think a surging Carly Fiorina has staying power.
I don't see it as being something that's going to last because her performance has been terrible.
Then there's Ben Carson, who said he wouldn't advocate putting a Muslim in charge of the nation.
The Carson campaign is in defense mode, saying there's a huge gulf between the Muslim faith and